to the Exceptional Educators Playbook. I am Vonda Adams, the math consultant here at KVEC, and alongside me is
Stephanie Kidd, also math consultant at KVEC.
And the purpose of our podcast is to offer professional learning opportunities to meet the needs of our teachers while giving teachers a platform to share their expertise. So every month this school year, we have highlighted a different topic that every educator needs to know. So each week that topic was broken down into content-specific categories. And week 1 focused on ELA, week 2 focused on math, week 3 focused on the social, emotional, behavioral lens, and then week 4 offered modifications for the low incidence community. And today we are going to be discussing specially designed instruction in math. So we are very excited to have Justin Combs that teaches special education at the Breathitt County High School. And he's going to share with us how he determines specially designed instruction and provide examples of SDI in his math classroom. So Justin, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and maybe just a little bit about yourself personally?
I teach here at Breathitt High School, special education, collaborate in English and math, and I spend a lot of time in math classes, really. I've been doing this now for 8 years, and I'm loving it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, since Justin's introduced himself, let's talk about what specially designed instruction actually is. And specially designed instruction is what the teacher does, and it has to be instruction, it's assessed, and it's the reteaching of the students. The SDI part, which is what specially designed instruction is, describes how the teacher adapts to the content and the methodology or the delivery of the instruction to address the unique needs of the student with a disability and to ensure that access to the general curriculum happens. One of the things about SDI is that it has to be provided by a special ed teacher, or it has to be provided by a related service provider who is qualified. Those can be OTs, PTs, and speech language pathologists. SDI is planned, designed, and may be delivered through an integrated and collaborative format or model. So now that we kind of know what SDI is, Justin, how do you determine students' needs for SDI?
What we do is we basically take a student, like I collaborate in math with Mr. David Napier. What we do is we go through their accommodations, we go through their strengths, their weaknesses. We're data driven here. I'm telling you, we have more data than I can't even look at. But we take the kids' MAP scores or whatever they scored on the end of the year test, and we determine where to go from there. Like we teach a strategy to overcome whatever deficit they have, or if we have to scaffold something for a kid. We actually make out, it's like a little form. I'll say I collaborate with Dave most of the time. So we'll make out a form, and I'll have a student, I'll have their strength, their weakness, their accommodations on the list, and what strategies we were using at the time to really get that student, try to close that gap with them.
Okay. And you mentioned you collaborate with your regular ed teacher, and so if you're not in the room, they have those strategies. Is that correct? And they know what's going on with that.
Right. We pull them out. We do one-on-one. We do the scaffolding. We do all the differentiated instruction things. From how we give tests. We give tests different ways. I have some students that, just this week we made me and Dave made a little game. I know all these kids are playing this Among Us or something, and we made a little game. So my kids, they played this game, and it was actually their test. They didn't know it was their test, but they were taking their test and they didn't know it, and they really loved it.
Well, that's awesome that you're able to change that around to where they can do that.
He does a good job too.
Give us some examples. You've talked all this time, and you talk about getting to know the kids' strengths and weakness, but how does building that relationship help you with your SDI?
Oh, it's like if you get a kid that, if you can sit and talk to a kid for 30 or 40 minutes, I can anyway. I can get the gist of, you know, what their strengths and weaknesses are. And I can take that, you know, and like Dave will give an assignment, I know what I can do, you know, just to change it up or whatever helps them get to where they need to be, if that makes sense. I feel like it don't.
Well, no, I get it. You know, you sometimes with an assignment in the general classroom, and if it's just an assignment and they've already been given certain things, I know that, like, I would plan for, does that student need a certain manipulative that may need to be added at this point in time?
Right.
Or do I need to make sure they've got a graphic organizer that's there and they understand how to use that graphic organizer? Those kind of things are important for our students. And so some of the modifications that you do, just talk about those that you're doing for that specially designed instruction to an assignment.
Right. Well, these little things that you gave me, they really come in handy. that's for sure. They like those. But you know, just changing things up for a lot of them, and really individualizing, you know, the kid. Like, you know, I'll pull out 5 one day, and they're all different. Every one of them learn different. So, you know, over here I'll be doing something, you know, hands-on using manipulatives. Another kid over here, he can whiz through anything just off the top of his head, and he won't need as much as this kid over here. So, yeah, I try to use as many manipulatives as I can.
Yeah, so, yeah, and we always recommend, Vonda and I both pull out the manipulatives first before you ever start into it. But we also know that with our special needs kids, and that's part of that specially designed instruction, that the manipulatives for the 3 times that they get to use them in the regular classroom may not be enough, and they may need it 4 or 5 or 6 times. And so that's a big concern that we have. So us observing that kid, knowing if they understand that, so they can move on to where they can either draw it or they can do a mental image in their head and explain that to you, that helps too. So can just give us another example of some of the SDI that you may use with a student who's really struggling at a certain point in time. What's your favorite, I guess we should say, for certain students that you kind of go to? Because we do have favorite SDIs, even though it's supposed to be specifically designed, I know that. But like mine was always the bead string, but do you have something that you could pull out there for that student to use?
Like right now in geometry, these things are lifesavers. They're awesome. You know, I can get, now I make it fun for them too. I do, but like we'll graph stuff right now. We're doing like the sectors of an arc. And I'll do one, you know, it's like I do, we do, you know, things like that. And, you know, they always want these whiteboards. I mean, they're always, I don't know why, but they always want their own whiteboard. And I mean, my bunch really likes it. So I'm usually using a whiteboard, or if they're virtual, we use whiteboard and Jamboard. They really like that stuff too. So I mean, that's really my go-to, and that's what they all seem to like anyway. They all put those little, like if it's a Jamboard, they'll put the sticky notes on there. They always think that's kind of funny too. They'll put little jokes on there, or a smiley face, but they actually end up doing the work too. So
Yeah,
I like it.
I think it's interesting how our kids tend to like what our favorites are too. I don't know if it's because we bring that to the table and we're way more enthusiastic about it. Like Stephanie talks about her bead string all the time, and you were talking about whiteboards. And, you know, my go-to was just to use those Unifix cubes. We were constantly using those. So, but that was my favorite too. So that seemed to be. So I guess maybe we tend to not meaning to, but we tend to push our kids toward what we feel comfortable with using as well.
I think it's also the enthusiasm that you have toward that particular item It's like, yeah, I'm going to use this, or we're going to use this
Mhm.
today. And we sound more enthusiastic when we're using those
Mhm.
things than what we do. And oh yeah, I got to pull those back out. Yeah, I love those. I really love those. And
I
they were,
haven't really been able to use, because I don't have it, like the whiteboards, you know, they have their name on it, and that, you know, I'll clean it after every time they use it, but I don't have, you know, all these that they could use.
Mhm.
But I'll get them out, and I'll sit there and do stuff with them. Like if I'm one-on-one, I'll get them. They can use them when we're one-on-one, then I'll clean them. But when there's like 5 or 6 in a room, you can't really do it. But one-on-one wise, these work pretty good too.
Yeah.
and I had a student who loved his heart. If you gave him a worksheet that had 15 problems on it, he would shut down. Like he would shut down the moment you gave him that, and he wouldn't do one. But yet I could take that same worksheet, I could cut it up, make little cards out of it, hand him the whole stack of cards at one time. He'd sit there and go through every one of them, you know, really quick. And it was like, okay, you done the same exact problems as Vonda did over here with the worksheet. But yet he would shut down the moment you handed him that sheet of paper. So for me, you know, learning those little tricks about our kids and understanding that, you know, that's just overwhelming because it's a lot on one page. So he's going to shut down as compared to a whole stack of cards being handed to him. That's the tricks we've got to know about our kids, and that's why that building relationships is so important. So
I know I did a goofy. I mean, it's, you know, it might seem goofy, I guess, but I did. Have you ever did the Post-it notes on the desk, like with the math problems? I put about 10 little Post-it notes on the desk. It has the math problem on it. And they really don't realize they're doing, hey, I'm doing 10 math problems, but I'm doing it on a little sticky note. So
It's all about the presentation.
Like ripping it up and doing it the same way. It's kind of cool.
I'll give you one more on to that is sticky notes. Take those, but put them in different places around the room. And like, if you've only got 5 kids, you can have 5 different colors. And so you have to go do all the yellow ones. And, you know, so-and-so has to do all the blue ones. And so they go around the room because they're up and moving, you know, and they're doing their problems. And they won't be the same problems in the same areas is what I would do is I would take them and just mix them up, even though they were doing the same problems. And one of my kids actually realized that. They were like, well, so-and-so's yellow one's the same as my blue one over here, but I saw his yellow one over here, you know, and it was things like that. They love that stuff, and they'll work toward it, and then you can always pull those off and say, you know, go get all your sticky notes, and then, you know, do a quick review of it and those kind of things. So, yeah, little things like that really make a difference in your classrooms.
I always like to do before they leave the room, you know, I have a little chart over there that they got it or they didn't get it. You know, they're always wanting to do that too when they leave. So they weren't taking it serious at first. They always put it over there. They got it. And then they finally started, well, I don't get that, so I'm going to put it over here. So that's helped out a lot too.
That shows a lot of growth in them then if they're beginning to recognize they still need a little help with something, didn't quite get it.
That also shows how comfortable they are with you because otherwise they wouldn't be doing that. So they're very comfortable.
I'm a pretty good group.
So it just proves that, you know, kind of, we talked about this, if you're willing to show your weakness to someone, it's kind of like you're very comfortable with them and you don't have a problem with that. So that definitely shows that they're very comfortable with you. So
I tell them all the time, you know what, there's things that I mess up on. You know, I actually put a math problem up the other day. I did it wrong. I had a student, I don't think that's supposed to be like that. I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, it's supposed to be negative. All right. So I get in a rush sometimes, and I just keep going. Got to put the negative side in there, Mr. Combs. Thank you. Good kid.
There's nothing wrong with them seeing that we're human and we make mistakes too. Or sometimes I think it's an advantage to make a mistake so they can catch it.
And that goes
They
back.
like to catch that mistake.
Yeah, that goes back to another one of those SDI strategies that we can talk about, and that's color coding or actually highlighting in those ways for, you know, you were talking about those negative numbers. One of the things I would have my kids do is any number that was supposed to be a negative, they had to write in red. So they had 2 pencils on their desk all the time. One was red and one was just a regular pencil, and they would write their problems out. And they would either underline all the negatives with a red, you know, color pencil, and then they could go through there and write that.
I've done it with like the regular pencil. I've never done, makes more sense.
Well, it's just a big visual for those kids who need that visual representation, you know, that we have. You know, we have quite a few of those. I'm one of those. I need visual representation sometimes. So, So as we're moving on, what advice or any thoughts that you would want to share with other teachers, especially our new teachers, or even something you come up with that's just ta-da, and the other kids, somebody else hasn't thought of?
Just like a strategy or just like as a whole?
Anything.
Well, if you're a co-teacher, planning with your regular ed teacher is huge. I mean, you can't plan enough, I'll tell you. Like I said, me and Dave, me making that sheet out and me and him sharing it to each other, that really helps. We both know the kids' weakness. We both know their strengths. We both know, what they got on their last test or what they got on their last 5 assignments. Like we'll put them on that sheet and go from there. And really, I mean, don't always search for a weakness. I mean, kids, we're in a success business. Don't always focus on a kid's weakness all the time. Find their strength, enhance their strength and let them run with it. And then their weaknesses, you can scaffold those, through time, and they'll get their accommodations and things like that. And with their accommodations, they can kind of independently work through stuff. And then when they get to a certain point, then you can scaffold those things. So really, I could go on.
I love the fact that you said we're in the success
Yes.
business. That's huge.
Uh-huh.
And that's awesome, because that's truly what we're here for. We're here for the success of our children. So
Right. That's what Charlie always, whenever we have a meeting, that's always what he's preaching to us. We see negative stuff, we do. I see negative stuff a lot, I do. But, as a staff now, we kind of focus on a lot of the positive stuff, and it's really cut out more negative stuff. So, I mean, I think maybe sometimes we look for weaknesses too much and forget that they have strengths. You just have to find them.
yeah, and it can be a small thing and you just build on it. Like you said, that's truly awesome.
Exactly.
Would you give any advice on building relationships with the kids?
Well, when I first started teaching, I was one of those that I was real hard on them at first, and then, I would lighten up with them. Now, I'm looking back, I wish I would have been more laid back and more jokey with them and had more fun. It's like more now, like we'll have a lot of fun, but we're still getting stuff accomplished and we're still getting things, they're progressing. So, I mean, all my group, like with Progress Monitoring, they've met their goals and I'm writing new goals. So, really those relationships with the student, you don't have to be hard on them all the time. You can be hard on them a little bit, but, and especially special education, they're looking for somebody to be good to them, really. And that's the way I see it now. So
I look at our kids as they gotta know you love them, and
Exactly.
once they know you, even if you have to be hard on them at that point, they're okay with it. They're like, yeah, okay, she's meaning for me to do this or straighten up and act this. And so most of the time they'll take it a little bit better than what they would if I'd been really mean at the beginning and said, you got to walk this line and these are the rules. So getting to know your students, you're right, it's really important. But also it's important for them to know that you care and, you're willing to joke around with them. So.
Oh, the more they know you care about them, the harder they're going to work for you.
Okay. Ms. Vonda, do you have anything?
I agree. No, I love, like you said, the statement that you're in a success business and that you're focusing on the positive, because like you said, everybody has a strength. We all have strengths, and it's a matter of finding those and focusing on those. And then of course those weaknesses are always evident. It's not something you have to search for most of the time. They're there, but being discreet about it and just bringing them along and still focusing on their strengths. I think that's awesome. That's an awesome philosophy to have. And I think that that's probably why your kids are working so well for you, is because they know that you recognize that they do have strengths and that you're willing to honor those and respect those as well. And then also, I love the way that you mentioned, pardon?
I'll go ahead.
I love the way that you mentioned how that you all had taken that game and made and focused on something that they had an interest in, and
Right.
they were learning, didn't even know they were learning. That's awesome when you could trick the kids into learning, and because they're
I'm not
having so
gonna
much
lie, I
fun.
actually played with them.
Hey,
It was actually pretty fun.
well, that's even better. You know, it's talking about building relationships. That's how you do it. That's how you go about doing it.
And Dave asked me, he said, "You want to play?" I said, "Sure." I'll hop in there and play. But yes, it was fun. And I've got some students that I'll have to put a math problem in some kind of car term. I mean, we'll have to figure something out. I change everything in the world. I try to get it to where it's interesting to them anyway.
Yeah, that's it. It's about finding those interests, right? And playing to their interest. Absolutely. Well, if you don't have anything else to share, we'll go ahead and bid goodbye to everyone. We want to thank everyone for joining us this week for our Exceptional Educators Playbook. And if you would like to have a deeper understanding about or resources or specific strategies, you can visit our Math Podcast Google Classroom, and you can use the code FNJPQQN. That was FNJPQQN. Or you can email either one of us, Stephanie.kidd@theholler.org, or myself, Vonda.Adams@theholler.org. Now, of course, you also could visit us we have a Facebook page at KVEC Exceptional Children. We're also on Instagram at KVEC EC. And then we also have a special ed site on our Holler at theholler.org. You could visit any one of those if you want to see any of our previous podcasts that we had this past year. So this is our last podcast, math podcast for the school year. We still do have our behavior podcast coming up next week, and then we also have our low incidence. And it has been a pleasure to highlight our special education teachers throughout our service area. And we really look forward to continuing this work again next school year. So until next time, we'll holler at you later.